But he didn't have those problems, obviously. For you ladies, I'm going to throw in Connie Douglas Reeves. Back in September of 2002, she turned 101. When she turned 101, September 26, 2002, she was inducted into the Cowgirl Hall of Fame, and her personal motto was, always saddle your own horse. And to me, she looks like one of those feisty little people that wouldn't listen to a doctor. You know, she's got her thumbs in her belt, she's got her shoulders back, her chin's out. You can just imagine a doctor saying to her, look, Connie, you're 101 years old now. It's time to give up salt. We got to worry about your blood pressure. It's time to give up eggs and butter. We got to worry about your cholesterol. And she's going to say, well, up yours, doc, and I've been eating salt and butter since before you were born and eggs before you were born. I'm not going to give that up. You can just see her. She is not a shrinking violet. For those of you that are a little more genteel, in May of 2001, this fellow here, Harold Stilson from Deerfield Beach, Florida, turned 101, went out and played golf for his birthday, and he hit a 6th hole-in-one at 101. Now, you have to have a strong grip. You have to be able to see 108 yards. You know, you have to have good eye-hand coordination. You have to have good memory. You can't have Alzheimer's disease. You can imagine getting that golf club up there and saying, is this baseball? I mean, what am I doing here, right? And so he's color coordinated. It doesn't get any better than that for 101 years old. I think he looks pretty good for 101. And this fellow, Antonio Todd, from Sardinia, the island, formerly island nation west of the mainland of Italy, back in January of 2001, turned 112, and he attributed his longevity to drinking 1 glass of red wine a day. There's a certain amount of validity to that because in the red wine there are these antioxidants that we know reduce your risk of heart disease and cancer. But you can get those same antioxidants in fruits and vegetables, so you don't need to drink the wine necessarily. It doesn't seem to matter what you eat as long as you keep the carbohydrates down and the vitamins and minerals up. That seems to be the thread, the common thread between all 100-year-olds. I'll show you an example. This gal here, Dora Amathebe from South Africa, was born in 1881, and in 1995 she turned 114. And when she was asked, Dora, what do you attribute your health and longevity to? She said, oh, I ate locusts, you know, the grasshoppers. You know about grasshoppers here, right? Pumpkin seeds, tortoise meat, wild herbs, dried fruit, and a cup of coffee. You notice it doesn't say bread. You notice it doesn't say potatoes. It doesn't say rice. It doesn't say corn. The only carbohydrate might be a little bit of that dried fruit. She got her protein from the locusts, from the grasshoppers, and the tortoise meat. She got her essential fatty acids from the pumpkin seeds, and if she ate the herbs grain, she got a little bit of vitamin C and folic acid and beta-carotene. And she lived to be 114. She probably lived longer than that. I didn't keep track of her after that birthday announcement. Yeah, crickets won't work. Okay. February 15th, 2003, this gal here, Maddie Owens, 119, died at age 119, and she grew up in South Carolina, and apparently when she was born in 1883, she was still working in the cotton fields. Owens told her family of her hard work in the cotton fields. I guarantee you that she didn't have vaccinations. I guarantee you that she didn't have antibiotics. I guarantee you she didn't have 3 good square meals a day. But I'll bet you, because I spent a lot of time in Africa, 2 years in Africa, and I know what they did with their wood ashes from their cooking fires. They always put it in their gardens, even in Africa, for their cabbage and their tomatoes and beans and so forth. And so I bet that her parents put the wood ashes from their cooking fires into the gardens. And one of my favorite birthday announcements goes back to 1995. This was a birthday announcement for Jean Calment from France. And she was documented by the Guinness World Book of Records being the oldest living woman at the time. There was more than 200 women who claimed to be older than she, but they didn't have the paperwork to prove it. Jean Calment had the paperwork to prove, to the satisfaction of the Guinness World Book of Records, that February 21st, 1995, she was in fact 120. February 21st, 1996, she turned 121. February 21st, 1997, she turned 122. And she died in August of 1997 at age 122 years and 164 days. She died suddenly of a stroke. She was up cooking her eggs and singing Farah Jacques. Farah Jacques, Farah Jacques. Ah! Fell over dead. Didn't have Alzheimer's disease. She was bright and mentally alert until the moment she died. She didn't have cardiovascular disease. She didn't have diabetes. She didn't have cancer. And she did have rheumatoid arthritis in her hands. You can see, but that's pretty good. Lived to be 122 and a half. Die suddenly without being mentally infirm. I mean, that's the way to do it, right? I thought this one was kind of cute. I was in Adelaide, Australia, back in October of 2003 when this came out in an Australian newspaper. World's oldest man dies at 122. A Cambodian tiger hunter by the name of Sek Yi, who is also the martial arts expert, attributed his longevity and that of his wife, I'm assuming a widow now, Long Uk, 108, to smoking and prayer. That's kind of a strange combination. But I'm sure he had got some mineral somewhere. Again, this is an Australian newspaper. It came out in March of 2003. A Brazilian believed to be the world's oldest woman died at age 124. Maria Etelvina dos Santos died of a stroke. Her birth certificate says she was the descendant of African slaves born in July of 1878. Do you think she got vaccinations and antibiotics? You think she had 3 good square meals a day? No, she was born in a straw hut caulked with cow dung. And probably led a pretty miserable life as she was growing up. But I guarantee you they put their wood ashes from their cooking fires into the gardens. And they didn't have doctors, and they didn't have hospitals and clinics, and they didn't have pharmaceuticals. And yet she lived to be 124. I'll give you 2 more, than I think you'll get the idea, and then we'll move on. But I think these are interesting, and they all tell stories. This next one I identified with, because I grew up on a little cattle farm in Missouri. We raised purebred Angus cattle, and we also had a little feeder operation to keep a kind of an even cash flow. And so I identified with this guy. He was a cattle farmer from a little town outside of Kathmandu, Nepal in the Himalayan mountains. And according to his obituary, he never saw a doctor, never set foot in a hospital. He smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day for 120 years. He wasn't a vegetarian. Raising cattle, he ate red meat every day. And in April of 1998, he died at age 141. When he was a young man, he led the first land survey team around Kathmandu in 1888. The last one I want to share with you tells a lot of stories. It's one of my favorite obituaries. It's about an Iranian woman by the name of Mazumi Dosti, and this was published in the Rocky Mountain News Wire Service out of Denver, Colorado in January of 1995. It said, Mazumi Dosti died at age 161. Now, this seems pretty outrageous, but you have to give a lot of credibility to this obituary because she was survived by 6 living children ranging in age from 120 to 128. They hadn't even left home to go to college yet. I thought this was a very profound observation by her oldest son, Golam. Her oldest son said his mother had never visited a doctor, never taken any prescription medications or over-the-counter medications. She only used herbs during her life. Now, do you think she had access to vaccinations when she was a child? Did any of her kids get vaccinated? No, they were born up in a little rock hut up in the mountains of a village, Kalatin Bala, in Khorasan province in Iran. Okay, and I guarantee you she was functional till very close to her death because they don't have nursing homes, and they're not just going to find some way to give her IVs to keep her alive. They're in that rock hut. And so she had to be still able to snap beans and skin carrots and cook and sing lullabies to great-great-great-great-grandkids. And whatever she did sewed maybe. We all have these genetic capacity to live well beyond 100. Experts in longevity, experts in gerontology and genetics tell us. We all, every one of us, each and every one of us in this room has the ability to live well beyond 100. And the only reason why we don't, the shortest way to say it, is because we do too much of the bad stuff and not enough of the good stuff. That's the most succinct way I can say it. We all have the genetic capability to do it. One of the fascinating things to me is that we ask doctors about what to do for health and longevity.